Hello, my wonderful AP Statistics students. I'm Goldie, and I am back with another lesson in Unit 1, Exploring One Variable Data. This time in Note 6, we are going to be going over our calculator commands and learning about our graphing calculators for the first time in AP Statistics. And I felt it was really important to take a lesson on this and just go over how we make some of the common graphs we're seeing in AP Statistics, and also how to get a lot of the summary statistics as we've been working through them. Because I'm sure you've noticed it's a pain to have to do all of this stuff by hand, and thankfully we have technology available now to help us do most of these things. So I'm specifically going to go through the commands for the TI-84. This also applies to the TI-89 as well, but some of the other types of calculators, you're going to have to look at your specific calculator to find these commands. All of them kind of work the same, but I'm going to show you screenshots and examples specifically from the Texas Instruments own calculator here. So thank you for being here. If you have to take notes out and want to take notes as you kind of follow along, or follow along with your calculator, is what I highly recommend. I have mine right here. Again, I'm going to be going through my slideshow. I'm going to be showing you screenshots of the stuff I'm going to be entering in this calculator, but you might want to have your calculator so that you can actually, do it. And it just helps kind of put it in your brain a little bit better when you can work through something yourself, right? So grab your calculator, notes if you want to take a couple notes on this, but we're going to go through this content together right now. Okay, so this is what your calculator kind of looks like, right? There's two main starting points that you're going to want to know for one variable statistics. And that is going to be first your stat button. So locate your stat button. It's what you will be clicking to begin entering in data. And this goes for any point in this course. Whenever you have to enter data in your calculator, you're going to be clicking that stat button, okay? And then the other one is the Y equals button. Now, right above the Y equals button, you see what's called stat plot. So if you click the second, right? So hopefully, second gets you to the location of what's above the button. So second, and then pressing the Y equals button gets you that stat plot. And after you input your data, that's where you're going to go to actually graph and visualize your data. Okay. Now, important to note here, your calculator only creates graphs for quantitative data. For categorical, you're still going to have to do that by hand. You can't do that on the TI-84s. Okay. So first, let's talk about inputting data, because it all starts with data. So let's walk through an example of how to input it into the list and some of the features of the list. So to just work with an example set of data so that we're all working together, I have the Unit 1 test scores from an Algebra 1 class I taught. Here's the Unit 1 test scores. We're going to input this data into our list. Okay. So again, here's the screenshot for it. You're going to press the stat button, and you're going to be taken, this is what the screen's going to look like. Okay. Now you have a couple things on this screen. You have a couple of things scrolling down here, and then you have a couple of things scrolling over here. Okay, so at the top, edit, calc, and test, they're called menus. Okay, edit, calc, and test. The edit menu is what you're going to do to edit your data. Your calc menu is what you're going to do to calculate summary statistics on your data. And the test menu is what you're going to do to run inference on your data. Now, the test we're going to get to in next semester. So we're not going to worry about that right now, but we are going to care about these two menus right here. So edit. First, we're going to do edit. Edit menu, well, number one is also called edit. That's where you input and edit your data. When you click sort A, it sorts the data. Same thing with 3, it sorts the data, but the A means it sorts ascending and D means it sorts descending. So ascending would be from lowest to highest, descending from highest to lowest. And then 4 is clear list, if you want to just clear all of the data out of your list without having to go through and do it each one by one. And then number 5, you just don't need to know about. But yeah, that's your setup, right? So you're going to click enter. I want number 1 highlighted for you, and I want you to press enter. And when you press enter, this is the screen that you input the data from your list. Okay, so it's going to have this little box highlighted, L1 first, right beneath that, and you just have to start inputting your numbers and clicking enter, and then it enters it into the list and moves on to the next value. Okay. If you enter a number in incorrectly, which of course happens, go back and highlight that number and press the DEL button, the delete, and it deletes it from your list. Okay. So this is what it looks like once we have all of the test scores entered. Okay. All of the test scores entered. Now we have entered 21 test scores, but notice how when this last one is highlighted, it says L22 right here, signaling that this blank spot is 22. If I went up and highlighted this, it would say L21. If I highlighted this number, it would say L20. Okay, so each number in the list gets a specific spot. And scrolling up will show you those different positions. Okay. To clear the list, like if you want to just get rid of all of the data in your list, you highlight the list title and press clear. Do not press delete because that actually deletes your list and then you no longer have a list one. Okay. You want to press clear and that will delete all the data from your list. Okay. So what we did was enter in all the data just individually. Okay. Individual data. What we can also do is we can enter in frequency tables as well. Okay, so to enter in a frequency table, and you don't have to do this because you already have data in your list, but I just want to show you this example while we're entering in data. If we have a frequency table of some kind and you have to make a graph of that, you don't have to enter in each individual values. Okay, in fact, for here, you don't know what those individual values are necessarily if you're just given a frequency table. You know that 4 values fall in this range, but what are those 4 values? How can you enter them individually into your calculator? You can't, but you can enter in a frequency table, okay? So you put your lower boundary in L1 and your frequencies or your counts in L2, okay? So I made a frequency table of our test scores. So this is the same data, and this is what it's gonna look like in your list. Here, these are my boundaries that I made, okay? These are my lower boundaries, 71, 77, 83, 89, 95. Put those values into your list 1, and then all of these frequencies with those lower boundaries in L2. Okay. And then we can make a graph with it, and I'll show you later. Okay. But we can make a graph with it if we needed to. Okay. All right. Let's say you have all of your data in L1. Okay, so we're going back to all of your test scores are in L1. Now let's make a histogram of that data. Okay, now we're going to go to stat plot. Okay, to get our graphing options to appear. So press second and then Y equals to get to your stat plot. And this is the stat plot menu. There's 3 plots you can turn on and then options to turn them all off. Now, your 3 stat plots, if they're all on, you're going to see 3 different stat plots displayed to your screen. And maybe for different classes, you might need that. But in AP Statistics, we really only need 1 stat plot at a time. Okay, so we're going to go to number 1, plot 1, and click enter. Okay, go ahead and click enter. And you're taken to the plot 1. Okay, now you can switch between different plots up here, but we're only interested in plot 1 right now. You're going to turn it on because we want to be able to display it. And then we're going to turn the type. Okay, I'm going to talk about these types in a moment, but I want you to highlight the histogram. Okay, so you see those bars right there? Those are going to be your histogram bars, and that's what you want highlighted. Your X list is the list where your data is, and it's the data that's going to go on the X axis, which is why it's called the X list. So right now, all of our test scores are in L1, and frequency means how often do we want to count those X values, and we only want to count them once. Okay. Color, if you have a color option, you can make it pretty or not. Okay. So once all of these options are filled in, and most of them are the default options, so you probably don't have to change much, you're going to press graph, and you're going to see your graph displayed. Okay, so you're going to press the graph option on your calculator. It's the one over to the right here. Now, you probably won't see it Okay. And that's because it has a different scale than the other graphs you may be done in Algebra 1 or Algebra 2. So what you have to do is you actually have to click zoom in order to fit the graph to the screen. Okay. Now I'm going to talk about zoom here in a moment. Let's talk about the data, what the different types of graphs you can make. Okay. So here are the 6 options that are given on your TI-84. I keep forgetting the number. Your TI-84. Okay. Of course, we have the histogram. Okay. Then we have the scatter plot, which we'll learn about. We have a line graph if we want to make a line graph. We don't really do those in AP Stat. We do modified and regular box plots. And then a normal probability graph, we might end up talking about that. We might not. It's not required in AP Statistics anymore. But that's kind of like step. It almost looks like a pixelated step. That's going to be a normal probability graph. Okay. So now let's talk about zoom. Okay. So if I press graph, I probably won't see my stat plot. So I have to go to zoom. And I have different zoom options here. If you go down to number 9, you're going to see it's called zoom stat. And that is a zoom feature that fits the screen to your stat plot that's turned on. So press 9 or scroll down and press enter, highlight that. And then you're going to see your histogram up here, your completed graph. And I want you to feel a sense of pride right now that you got it. Okay. And most of the time, it does a really good job of auto-fitting the data so you can get a clear picture of the shape of the graph. Okay. We said for a histogram, you usually want to aim between 5 to 7 bars on your graph. Anything less or anything more, it just wouldn't show a good, clean picture. Okay. If you want to customize your graph a little bit more, if you wanted 5 intervals instead of 6, or you wanted it to somehow have different boundary lines, you're going to press window on your calculator. Okay. Window. It's a graph option. When you press window, you'll be taken to this screen. And these are the numbers that your calculator automatically came up with when you pressed zoom stat. So that's what's currently there. Now the X-min and the X-max right here are the minimum and maximum values you see on the screen. Okay. X scale is your bin width. So that's going to be your interval width, how big you want that. Y min and Y max are the min and max Y values off to the side. That covers your frequency. Normally this is a negative number, even though we don't have negative values as our counts. It wants the x-axis to be a little bit, instead of being like right at the bottom of your calculator screen, it wants it to be raised up a little bit on your calculator screen for you to easily see the boundaries. So that's why your calculator kind of auto fits it like that. And then the Y scale is how much your y-axis is going up by. Okay. Other 3 values we don't care about, so don't worry about those. Okay. Now, if we created this histogram by hand, like we've been doing so far, we would always take the maximum value minus the min value and divide by the number of bins we wanted. And then we rounded that number to become our bin width. So if we took the max value of 100 and subtracted 71 divided by 6, we would get 5.8. And that's what the calculator did too. Okay. That's why your X scale was 5.8. Now let's say we wanted to round our value. Okay. And we wanted to round to 6 just to get a nice even number. Because let's say we had to take this graph and we had to draw it on paper, right? Well, we want to make it easy for ourselves. We want to try to eliminate decimals. So let's say we wanted our scale to be 6. Okay. And that's what I'm going to set our scale to be. Our minimum is still 71. And if I count up by 6 and making sure the X max will accommodate the largest X value I have, I want to make sure that my max is 101. Okay. Other values like the Y stuff, that's just my preference, just to make the screen look nice. You can play around with those numbers too. You don't have to necessarily follow those, but that's just what I like. I just like nice whole numbers. Okay. And this is what we get. Okay. Now I changed it so we have 5 bins. And the shape changed a little from the graph we originally created on the calculator. So which graph is better, me or the calculator, right? It's totally a matter of preference because both of them do show the shape pretty well. The first graph shows a bit more of what we call the bimodal distribution. So it shows the two humps a little bit more. This one I created looks a little bit more uniform. Okay. You could also say it kind of looks almost like it's the same value across. Okay. This is a great example of how axis manipulation might cause the data we are looking at to be misleading, okay, which is a common thing that you see in the media today is misleading graphs, okay? Axis manipulation is misleading, okay? Anyway, I'll get off my soapbox there. If you press trace, which is the only button we have yet to press on our graphing calculator, trace right here, a cursor is going to appear over the first bin. It's going to look like this right here, this cursor. And it shows where the bin starts and stops. So you see down here, it says min and max. So it says min, so it starts at 71 and goes up to, but doesn't include 77. So it's saying that this boundary is 71 and this boundary is 77. Okay. And then n is how many values fall in that interval. Okay. All right. So if you do a frequency table and want to make a histogram, Zoom Stat does not show a good picture of the data. You have to go in and manually change that window just because of the way the frequency table is used. Okay. But if you do that here, let me go back. I'm sorry, I'm jumping around here. If you wanted to have a frequency table and use a frequency table, your X list will still be L1, but instead of the 1 here, you're going to put L2. Okay. And to get the name, I guess I didn't put instructions on that, but to get the name of L2 to appear, look at number 2, and you see right above number 2, there's a blue button called L2. So you press second and then press number 2, and that gets the L2 to appear, signaling that's your list 2. Okay, so you want that in your frequency, and that is how you would make a frequency table as a histogram. But you are going to have to do some window manipulation yourself. It doesn't really do a good job of auto-fitting to the data. Okay, let's go back to where we were before. So that's histograms. Let's talk about box plots. We can make a box plot of our data. So go back to stat plot and switch from the histogram option over to either the modified or the regular box plot. Remember that modified shows the outliers according to that 1.5 times IQR rule. And if there's no outliers, the modified box plot is actually just going to look like the regular box plot. Okay. So if you go to Zoom, you'll have to go to Zoom and then Zoom Stat again, and it'll fix it to the box plot. Okay. And you get the box plots fitted to the screen. Okay. And then this is what it's going to look like right off the bat. And when you press trace, you're going to get the little cursor to appear. And the cursor, when you press over on either side, it's going to jump between the 5-number summary. Okay. And it's going to display the 5-number summary, each of those values one at a time down below. Now here's some notes. The y-axis means nothing on a box plot. Remember that it's only the x-axis that gets graphed with a box plot. Never draw a y-axis with a box plot, okay? And then scrolling through the box plot, you'll see the 5-number summary. You will not see individual data values or anything like that, just the 5-number summary. Okay? And again, a note about the frequency table. You can't create a box plot with a frequency table. Okay, frequency tables are only used with histograms, bar graphs with categorical data, and ogives. They're not created for graphs like box plots. Okay, so that's graphs. We've covered histograms and box plots, which are the two we're talking about right now. Let's go over to summary statistics because that's an important piece here. So summary statistics are going to be all of the values we've talked about to try to summarize our data numerically. So if you press stat again, and this time scroll over to the calc menu, you're going to see a whole list of all the things you can calculate, okay, with your data. And we're actually going to be discussing quite a few of these in our course. Right now, the only one we are interested in this unit is 1-var stats. It stands for 1 variable statistics. That's like our unit name, so that's going to be a good one there. So highlight that and click enter. This menu is going to appear on the newer calculators. If you have an older calculator, it doesn't, but you're going to enter then the same thing, okay? Your list is going to be your list of data, L1. Frequency list, if you leave it blank, which is kind of the default, it just counts every data value once, which is what you want. Okay, and then you can press calculate. Okay, press calculate. And then you get all of your summary statistics, okay, all listed. And you can even see here, they're all going to be over here. And you can even see this little down arrow indicates that there's more values if you scroll down. Okay, that's what that means. But let's talk about each of these symbols. X bar, of course, is the mean of your data set. Sigma X is the sum of all of the X values. So if you added up all the numbers in your list, the sum of X squared is if you square all the X values and then add them up. These are used in some more advanced formulas in statistics, not in this course, but in other statistics courses. So that's why they're there, but we don't really use these ones in this course. Okay, we do use this one. That's the standard deviation of the sample data. Now this one right here, sigma X, this is standard deviation if it was the population data. Now don't use this right now. We are going to use this value in probability, but that's a ways away, and I don't want you to worry about that right now. Right now, do not use this. Okay, I know they look approximately the same. They're calculated slightly differently. Always use the S sub X when we're talking about sample data we enter in our calculator. Okay, N stands for the number of values, and then you start getting into your 5-number summary. So you'll see the minimum value and Q1. And if you scroll down, you'll see the rest of the 5-number summary there. Okay. Okay, and those are all the notes I've been talking about. Pause them if you want to read them. Again, frequency table, one var stats will not work. Okay, you need to input each individual X value in order for summary statistics to be accurate. If you tried using the frequency table with the frequency list, it's going to assume that you have 4 values of 71 and et cetera, et cetera. It doesn't work well when you don't have individual values. Okay. All right. So I have an example. If you wanted to try this on your own, below is the data for the heights in inches of the 2024 Green Bay Packers. If you wanted to work with a large data set, graph the data on your calculator, copy down the graph, and describe the distribution of heights. Okay. If we were working in class right now, I would let you do this on your own, and then we would talk about it at the end. But I'm just going to show you the answer. Okay. If you want to pause and try it on your own, if you're tired of listening to me, go for it. But let me show you what the answer is. Okay. Put it all in the calculator. This is what you should get. Okay. I forget if I had to adjust the x-axis on this, or if this is what the calculator gave. But notice I have 7 bins going from 68 to 82 and a bin width of 2. Okay. My frequency off to the side there. When you are graphing a histogram, you can definitely use a calculator for it. And if you are ever graphing it by hand, you're going to want to make sure that you are detailed when you graph that by hand. Okay. With the digital AP stat exam, if we make the jump to free response questions being digital, I don't know how that's going to look. But right now, when you're partially digital, you are going to have to make sure to copy it down directly as it is. Okay. And label the graphs, label your axes, make a title, do all of the good things that graph making students do. Okay. And then describing this distribution, we haven't quite reached that yet in this sequence of notes, but the way we would describe a distribution is describing the shape, outliers, center, and spread. Now the shape, I would describe this as a unimodal, approximately symmetric. Outliers, there's no visual outliers. Nothing stands out from the crowd. The center and the spread I can find directly from my calculator using one var stats. So I know from my calculator tells me the mean height is 74.4 inches. And it tells me the standard deviation is 2.5 inches. I do not calculate those by hand. I use my calculator for it. Okay? And on the AP Stat exam, you don't have to find those values by hand. You don't have to show those values being calculated by hand. When you tell the reader that, hey, the mean is 74.4 inches, if that's correct, the reader is going to know you used your calculator, and that's okay. All right. Same thing with the standard deviation. Same thing with any summary statistics that you maybe have to find by hand. Okay. And that brings us to the end of our lesson today. Thank you guys so much for following along. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button and subscribe to my YouTube channel for more great AP statistics content. And until then, until the next video, I wish you endless statistical success, and I will see you over there.